Former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani joins us now. Hey, Neama, how are you?
Good, Juju. How about yourself?
I'm well, thanks. Happy holidays. Let's start with that video, which is not at all festive, of an inmate being beaten by prison guards. Now, New York Attorney General Letitia James is investigating what's going on in that video. What next steps might be taken before we know if charges could be filed?
Juju, I fully expect charges to be filed. Here you have an inmate who's in cuffs, Robert Brooks, and he's being struck, he's being punched, he's being kicked. When you have the Attorney General and the governor coming out and making statements, you know that criminal charges are imminent. And of course, we're likely going to see a civil lawsuit on the part of Brooks' family as well.
Now, is there any kind of case that could be made by corrections that this is some type of normal protocol?
Not necessarily. When you're dealing with any type of use of force, doesn't matter if you're a civilian or you're law enforcement, really the same standard applies. It has to be reasonably necessary, self-defense under the circumstances. And when you have someone who is in restraints and who's clearly beaten and bruised and ultimately he dies, you're talking about deadly force, and deadly force is only reasonable if it's to prevent imminent death or serious bodily injury, and there was no real risk to those corrections officers.
So as a former federal prosecutor, what kinds of charges could possibly come out of this investigation for those guards?
Well, we're looking at two potential sets of charges. The first might be state, and obviously they can be prosecuted for anything up to murder, but you also may see federal civil rights charges because, of course, they were acting under color of authority. So it's going to be interesting to see if Trump's new attorney general and her Department of Justice steps into this case or not.
Really disturbing video. Thank you. Now we're going to switch gears. As we've reported here on Prime, a judge has denied that music mogul Jay-Z's request to uncover the identity of the woman accusing him and Sean Diddy Combs of raping and drugging her when she was just 13. The judge took it a step further, saying that Jay-Z's attorneys might be trying to fast-track the judicial process by repeatedly filing motions. Could this in the end actually hurt Jay-Z's case?
It could, and in the legal world, we call that a bench slap. And Alex Spiro of Quinn Emanuel received some pretty harsh words from the judge in the case, saying that, you know, his attempt to file motion after motion and to fast track this case for his celebrity client wasn't going to work. So chalk up one win for Tony Busby and his client. Busby, of course, represents many of the victims against Sean Diddy Combs and at least one of the alleged victims against Jay-Z. Substantively, though, I think this is important because it allows the victim to remain anonymous. And unlike many states that allow for victims of sexual assault or sexual abuse to remain anonymous as a matter of course, there's no such rule in the federal system.
Well, I'd be curious what those reasons might be, because we know that those state rape shield laws that you're talking about protect witnesses' identities. And these types of cases, they're routinely kept anonymous. And yet, what are those factors that could lead this judge to agree, maybe down the road, to reveal her identity?
Ultimately, I think the judges that have unmasked or identified these accusers, the judges in those cases have said, well, look, you're talking about allegations that are sometimes decades old, and it's appropriate for the accuser to identify himself or herself to allow Combs to prepare his defense in the case. But I think there's a strategic reason here as well. I think that the defense attorneys in this case, they want to identify the victims to potentially send a message that we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be on the offense, it's not just going to be on the defense. So if you're going to come forward and you're going to make these accusations, you better be prepared to identify yourself in what will be a very public trial.
And we should note that Jay-Z and Diddy both deny the claims against them. But clearly, there's a lot to unpack here. Neama Rahmani, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Juju, as always.